Good evening. Good evening to all. Let me start here by first apologizing for not being able to be with you. I wish you all luck and a successful meeting. Just as a compromise, I did suggest that I send my presentation, my speak, so I don't leave Uri Shani alone in the platform. Good evening, Uri. I wish you that you enjoy the trip to Tucson, and I wish to all participants a successful meeting and Simpson. Here in the region, we're having a water shortage. We're having problem of the climate change as we bear the consequences of the problem created somewhere else. But more than that, other than the consequences of the climate change that we're facing, the problem of the conflict in the region. When talking about the region, I'm talking about the Middle East, where water is one of the hot issue because we're living in arid and semi-arid region, and we're facing the problem of desertification, and added to that now all the problem is worsening due to climate change. If we look to our situation, the Israeli-Palestinian situation, we're sharing the same resources. Basically, we're sharing the Jordan River basin. This is not only shared between the Israeli and the Palestinian, but also shared with the Syrian, Jordanian, Lebanese. This is the major surface water that we are sharing, but in terms of the Israeli-Palestinian, we're sharing four major groundwater aquifer basin. Three main aquifers, we call them the mountain aquifer, that mainly located in the West Bank and extend beyond the Green Line into Israel. This is why, according to the international law, these are transboundary water courses. We add to the three aquifer basin, the coastal aquifer basin that goes underneath Gaza, and this is the four aquifer basin and the Jordan River basin are the main resources shared between Israel and Palestine. We're having here also problem over the water that we call it water right. I wish that Uri Shani can speak a little bit about this, especially Israel recognized the Palestinian water right but postponed this definition or the definition of water right to the permanent status negotiation. Unfortunately, the permanent status negotiation is supposed to take place after 5 years of Oslo, but the failure of the Camp David negotiation extend the interim period and the interim arrangement and Oslo arrangement, and now we're living the year number 14 for the arrangement that has been done in Oslo. What's happened in Oslo, that the party agreed on the status quo, plus added to that the Palestinians have been allocated more or additional quantity to the level of 70 up to 80 million cubic meter, and to that regard they established the Joint Water Committee. This committee, that the Palestinians have to submit all the project that they have to implement to the Israeli in this forum, and then we get or we don't get the approval. This is the situation in the past 14 years, and it's unfortunately it doesn't like what the international law says, that whatever Israel doing inside Israel in the shared resources like the Western Aquifer, and Uri Shani knows that they don't submit this project to us for to review. The only project that Israel submit within this forum is the project related to settlement, and I find myself as the head of the Joint Water Committee in a position whether to approve a project for illegal settlement or not to approve. Then we have the problem to or the bargaining about getting approval for our project. I don't intend to politicize the speech, but this is the problem, this is the daily problem that we are facing here in the Palestinian territory. the Palestine, we refer to the West Bank with 2.5 million Palestinians as well as to 1.5 million Palestinians living in Gaza. Around 4 million relying on limited amount of water that's given to us after Oslo. But in terms of per capita, we're the poorest people in the region, because what's available to us is less than 60 liter per capita per day. In Gaza, they're relying on the aquifer underneath their feet. The aquifer, which is sub-aquifer of the coastal aquifer basin, to provide only 50 million cubic meter. This is the sustainable amount. But because there is no alternative, there is no other resources, we over abstracting the aquifer. So what we're abstracting now from Gaza is around 170 million cubic meter. That makes the over abstraction make the water saline and encourage the intrusion of the seawater. And on top of that, because the lack of sewage treatment plant, around 30 million cubic meter of sewage untreated water returned back to the aquifer. So the water is not drinkable in Gaza, and this is the dilemma that we are facing, and we have to secure water today. We have to implement a desalination facility for Gaza with not less than 100 million cubic meter, because what we're using now from the aquifer is 170 million cubic meter. So this is the challenge that we are facing in Gaza. In West Bank, the challenge is greater, because in the West Bank, the challenge is to create a viable Palestinian state. Here, in the context of the peace process and the two-state solution, we have to come and we have to create a viable Palestinian state. Our state will not be viable if there is no water enough. So from where we get the water? The water we get it either first from the definition of the water right, so we get our rightful share from the Jordan River that we get nothing out of it since 1967. We get the rightful allocation from the groundwater aquifer. In the meanwhile, once we identify the water right, we identify also the water right of the Israeli. So instead of disputing and fighting and having conflict over water, having that if we sit around the table and we negotiate and we agree on the equitable, what does it mean equitable, whether equal or not, we can reach an agreement. And Uri knows that we can sit and we can reach an agreement. This is like what's happened on the Dead Red Canal. We kept negotiating and fighting in the room all the time for around 3 years. At the end, we were able to sign an agreement, and this is one of the strategic projects that you find Israeli, Palestinian, as well as the Jordanian sitting in one room just talking about the future. So this is the challenge. The challenge is not the present. The challenge is not the past. The challenge is the future and how to make water available to the future generation of the Israelis, to the future generation of the Palestinian, to the future generation of the Jordanian. But more than that, we said we have to take water out of the conflict. So it's not only the Israeli and Palestinian having conflict over water, it's also between the Syrian and the Jordanian over the Yarmouk, between the Syrian and the Israeli over the Julan, between the Israeli and the Lebanese over Wazani. So let's just not waste our effort on fighting all the time. Let's just start talking about the future, and here is Uri in front of you can talk to you about the future. But the future, we don't forget the past. This is why we have to sit and talk about the rightful allocation.